I'm Stanford Thompson. I'm the executive director of Equity Arc, and I'm joined by my team members, Paula Wilson and McGee Capsuto. And I'm super excited for today's presentation. We know how important the kind of summer study space is, and it's not only an opportunity for musicians to advance with their technical skills, ensemble skills, but also it's an important time in their development to network and also to just see how big our field is and develop really kind of lifelong relationships that they will take with them throughout their studies and their pathway towards becoming a professional musician. So to really jump into things, I would love to turn it over to Paula on our team. And again, just thank you all for being with us today.
Right. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Paula, and I'm the Membership Engagement and Marketing Coordinator for Equity Arc. And today I'm going to walk us through an overview of the outcomes and impact of the Common Application for Summer Study. So here's our agenda, where I'm going to start by providing some context on how the Common Application came to be, and then we'll share the outcomes and impact of the program. And then I'll end the presentation with some of our considerations for the coming years, and then we'll transition into a panel discussion with some of our Common Application partners. And then lastly, we'll open the floor for questions and continued discussion. So without further ado, let's get started. So you can find more detailed information in the Common Application report that was sent ahead of today's session, and we'll put it in the chat as well if you'd like to follow along. So we'll begin with a look into the origin and evolution of the Common Application for Summer Study. So the idea was introduced shortly after Equity Arc's launch by Catherine Drago Llewellyn, who is on the board of Equity Arc, and she was Interlochen's Dean of Enrollment Management at the time. She shared the idea of creating a resource that eliminated barriers to summer study for musicians of color. And this would be achieved by removing the hefty application fees that average $60 per application, the time-intensive task of preparing multiple audition lists, and also eliminating the financial burden of summer study tuition. So after exploring this idea further, the Common Application for Summer Study was born. It served as a free application for musicians of color to apply to any partner festival with just one application. So Equity Arc, alongside a working group of summer study program administrators, further refined this initiative in October of 2021. In this design process, they determined a universal set of data to collect from applicants and allowed them to submit any repertoire that best represented their playing ability, just as long as any of those submissions included orchestral excerpts. And this working group also agreed to select Accepted as the application hosting platform. Accepted graciously allowed Equity Arc to pay a base fee per applicant, no matter how many applications they submitted. So this partnership, along with our summer study partners' commitment and willingness to waive their application fees and offer a full tuition scholarship, this is what helped lay the foundation for advancing equity through collaboration. So in December of 2021, the pilot season of the Common Application for Summer Study was launched. We had 11 summer study partners and 76 applicants. On the administrative side, Equity Arc had to sort each application manually to assign them to a summer study partner for review. And so we knew that this was something that we would want to adjust for the future. So with the support of Accepted, we developed a process that autofilled all application data into each additional program the applicant selected. And so this automated process allowed our summer study partners to have greater autonomy to connect with their applicants and also greater capacity to engage with the data. So we also worked with summer study partners to formalize a shared audition list that applicants could submit to any partner festival. We established two lists based on the skill level that the program required. In order to help students make an informed decision on their summer study plans, we hosted a virtual summer study fair that drew over 40 attendees. And so the success of the pilot season allowed us to maintain all of our partners and add 3 additional programs to our second season. And so we launched the second season of the Common Application in November of 2022 with 14 partners. We had 156 unique applicants, which more than doubled the number of applicants from the pilot season. The automated application sorting process was overall a success, and our main technical adjustment will be to work with Accepted on automating our eligibility requirements, because we did have some applicants who were ineligible for various factors. And so now we're currently in our evaluation and adjustment period, and we're doing this by taking in the feedback from our partners and musicians, and we're taking that into consideration so that we can continue to improve our offerings. And I'll share some high-level considerations at the end of this presentation. So just for reference, here's a look at our summer study partners for 2023. We're very grateful for their partnership as we are continuing, doing this initiative. And if you have a summer program that you would like to add to the 2024 roster, feel free to send McGee an email at mcgee@equityarc.org. Okay, so now we'll take a closer look at the outcomes and impact of the Common Application for summer study. Here's the data at a glance. As I mentioned earlier, we had 156 applicants this year who submitted 322 applications in total. They averaged about submitting about 2 applications per musician. 157 of those applications were accepted, and 57 musicians enrolled in a partner program. And our partners offered over $260,000 in scholarships to these applicants. So let's take a closer look at the demographics of the applicants. The majority of our applicants are at the pre-collegiate stage of the ARC, ranging from ages 14 through 18. And we heard from our summer study partners that there was an uptick in collegiate applicants this year, and we look forward to growing those numbers each year. As the Common Application for summer study is tailored for musicians of color, we are very interested in seeing who our application is reaching. And so the top 3 racial and ethnic demographics that were served were Hispanic and Latine, which is 35%, East Asian, 21%, and 19% of our applicants were African American or Black. So regarding instrumentation, the majority of our applicants played a stringed instrument, with the highest number of applicants playing the violin. And on the geographic side of things, our Common Application reached over half of the United States. Illinois had the most applicants this year. And so when you look at this map, you can see that the fewest applicants came from the western and westmost part of the Midwest. And so as our membership grows in those areas, we're looking forward to increasing the applicant numbers for the Common Application in those areas as well. So now let's look into some of the metrics by the program. We'll start with the number of applications. So each program received an average of 23 applications, with the most going to Via Academy. Each program averaged a 46.8% acceptance rate, with NEC Summer Orchestral Institute having the highest acceptance rate and NYO with the lowest. I will note that although Via Academy accepted 30.36% of our applicants, each applicant was accepted as an auditor, which granted them virtual access to group classes. And overall, almost 50% of all applications were accepted by our summer study partners. So as we all know, it is one thing to be accepted into a program and another to enroll. So based on our last slide, our 2 most highly selective programs, NYO and NRO, they had the highest yield rate of 100%. And next up is Via Academy with 64.71% yield rate, and Via Academy had the most enrolled applicants. And on average, about 46% of the applicants enrolled into each program, and 36.31% of all of our accepted common application applicants enrolled in the summer program. So the last piece of quantitative data that we'll share here is on financial aid that was awarded to our enrolled participants. Over 45% of the enrolled participants received full tuition scholarships. And I'll note that 4 of our partners have tuition-free programs, and those are NYO, NSO SMI, NRO, and Via Academy. And regarding Via Academy, this is a completely tuition-free program. It includes housing, food, and travel. And I'll also note that our partners at NYO supplemented their tuition-free program by offering travel support to the selected fellow. 7% of enrolled applicants did not receive financial aid, and that's mainly because some of them did not opt in for consideration. And then the remaining 47.4% received partial scholarships. Most of those partial scholarships were upwards of 60 to 7% in financial support. And so now I'll move on to some qualitative insights that we gleaned from a survey to our Common Application Fellows. 100% of the respondents shared that they would apply via the Common Application next year, and they did not share any requests for technical adjustments. When we asked about what additional support they'd like to receive from Equity Arc, the top 2 requests were for more information on performance opportunities, resources, and programs, and also for resources to help them prepare for auditions. So as our team continues to expand, we look forward to providing those opportunities to our members so that they can share with their musicians. And so here is a look into what our fellows have to say about the Common Application for Summer Study. The main benefits that they share about its impact are the variety of programs that they're able to explore and learn about. They also shared that the shared audition list reduces time-related barriers for busy musicians. Many of those who were seniors, they were able to submit their college audition material for the summer program, and they were able to do that instead of spending time and money producing different recordings. They also appreciated that the reduced financial burden that the Common Application offered, especially regarding application fees. And they were grateful for the opportunity to spend the summer developing their musical skills in a focused learning environment. And so I'll pause for a brief moment so you can take a glance at some of these testimonials. Okay. And so we asked fellows what factors impacted their enrollment decision. The top 4 answers were that they received referrals from teachers, music programs, and friends. They also chose their program because of the different opportunities that it offered these musicians to grow in their career and musical skills. They also chose programs based off of the caliber of the music faculty and based off of the location of the program. And fellows shared that they were most looking forward to meeting new friends and being around like-minded musicians. They're also looking forward to learning from the faculty and improving their musical skills. A lot of them shared an interest in playing chamber music and, of course, learning new repertoire. And so here are a few items that are top of mind as we go into the next season of the Common Application for Summer Study. We're looking to increase the connection with students and families by separating our summer study fair by age level so that programs can tailor their information to each group and so that they can create opportunities for deeper engagement. We also know that by building these sustained relationships with musicians, we'll be able to improve communications with our partners and be able to provide the resources that are responsive to musicians' needs. For many students, summer study is the first time they're away from home, and many times they're entering an environment that is not necessarily racially diverse. And so we're interested in learning how our summer study partners are supporting BIPOC students and on campus, and seeing how Equity ARC may be able to support. And so each year we look forward to expanding the reach of the Common Application by adding more summer study partners and attracting more applicants. And so as this initiative scales, we're exploring how we can continue to sustain this initiative financially. Finally, our work in the summer study stage of musical development has shown the power of collective action. And we hope that this initiative serves as a catalyst for expansion into other stages of the ARC, especially in the collegiate and the pre-professional realm. We'll move on into our panel discussion. And so we're going to be able to hear from some of our summer study partners about their experiences with the Common Application for Summer Study. We'll hear some insights on advancing equity in summer study in their individual programs, and about the impact that we can have collectively. And so after we set the stage with this panel, we'll open the floor for any additional questions and have continued discussion. And I believe we're going to be pinning our panelists at the top so you can hear from them, but we'll begin by having our panel introduce themselves. Maybe we could start with you, Emily.
Sure. I am Emily Brown. I'm the camp director at Luzerne Music Center. We're located in Lake Luzerne, New York, near Albany, New York. And we originally connected with the Common Application last year. Actually, I connected with Stan and he sent me over to McGee, and yeah, we're happy to join.
How about you, John?
Okay, there's a couple of John, so I'll go. Hi, I'm John Kilkenny. I run the Sewanee Music Center, which leads the university. Echoing. Wait. I run the Sewanee Music Center. Hi, there's an echo, so I'll just stop there. Thanks.
Austin?
Hey, my name is Austin Sposato. I'm Artistic Planning Coordinator for the National Orchestral Institute and Festival here in College Park, Maryland. We're in our 4th week right now, so sorry if I look a little bit busy. Yeah, we've been with the Common App since the beginning and been proud to partner with it and had a lot of success, big supporters.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. I figured we could open this conversation by talking about the role that summer study has in one's musical development. I'd love to just hear about that because we get a lot of different questions about, the specific role that going somewhere out and for the summer has. Why do that? Why spend a summer doing that? So I would love for you to talk about that as we open up this conversation.
I can start. This is obviously something that we probably all have a million thoughts about. But I think that one of the most valuable parts of the summer study experience at a festival is meeting and interacting with different students from across the country or the world, in our case, and getting experience with all these different schools of playing and just kind of like different ideas. It's I think one of the real values of these programs is you hear the same information said in 5 or 10 different ways from all the different faculty you work with, and then you get together with maybe 4 or 10 other students that play the same instrument as you from different schools and work through that in these different ways, and you just there's a lot of room for insights. And the other thing that I think and I'll just speak for our program, but a lot of times something we hear is that at people's home school, they'll often get pinned in a certain role. Oh, you're the bass clarinet player, so you're always going to play bass clarinet. Oh, you're the principal player, so you always play principal. But here they have an opportunity to kind of make a new name for themselves and kind of get it away from some of those biases that they might have during the year at their school, which is something we hear a lot. that, oh, I got to play principal so many times this summer. That never happens. I have a renewed confidence in myself. So I think those two things. And then the third thing that is maybe the most obvious one is meeting teachers that you want to work with in the future. So whether that's for grad school or if you're trying to sub with their orchestra or whatever, that's probably the most obvious value gain, I think, for summer study.
At the risk of offending anyone that loves music theory or music history, I think that for a lot of our students, it's the one time that they can concentrate on the thing that they first became passionate about, which is playing their instrument. And we also have a vocal program here too at Swanee. So, speaking for the singers as well as the instrumentalists, I think that they're all justifiably so pulled in so many different directions during the academic year, which is great. They need to study those things, but the summer affords them the opportunity to really focus on why they signed up for their instrument or started singing in the first place. And that I love seeing that. I love seeing how much they connect, or in many cases, I find, especially after COVID, reconnect with why they became musicians in the first place, or try to work their way down this path. So I would echo everything Austin said. I'm sure we all would. I mean, those all are also reasons why we have students here, but that focused opportunity to study their instrument or their voice or compose. We have composers here as well, without interruption from either other musical studies or other things that happen in life, right? I mean, they're not grocery shopping here. They're not cleaning their house here. There are things that they're able to focus on in a way that is almost impossible to do from September to May.
I also think that, and something that I talk with our camper families at the end of the summer about, is that we connect with those private teachers of our students too, and kind of follow up when students go back to them in September, and they always remark on what growth they had over the summer, right? And I completely agree, echoing just Austin and John and what they had said, that really dedicated time to practice their instrument, and I think be really reinvigorated by having new faces around them. Again, especially some of our students, if maybe they're the best player in their school or their youth orchestra, and getting out of that zone a little bit, meeting other players who equally challenge them and really push them as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I'm from Interlochen Center for the Arts. And one of the things that I always like to talk with families and encourage them about is just the opportunity to be in a fresh new space and to be inspired by that new environment, and the, finding, other young musicians or artists who are there to study and focus on the same thing that students are really excited about, to find that community in a new environment, and what inspiration can come from that. For us, we're located in Northern Michigan. So it's a very different physical environment for many students. And so taking the inspiration from the lakes and the community that we have here on our campus is a big component, and then seeing how that can inspire their art, and also having that time to be just, in a new environment and not having maybe the distractions of day-to-day life, and just being able to really focus on, what they are passionate about, and the opportunity to really grow in their playing, in their performance.
Yeah, and also just hearing from everyone, pop in again, but I'm reminded of like the great diversity of all of our programs too, of just how like it really is about like inspiration and joy. And then you can go find the thing that you want. Like if you want to play a different, a diversity and range of orchestral repertoire that you don't get at your home school, then you can go find that. If you want time and space to practice or to work on chamber music, you can go find that. And there's really that's just another thing that summer study offers, is the opportunity to pick the thing that you want to focus on. And as John said, without the distraction of all the multitudes of things that you have to do during the year. It's so, I don't know, I was just hearing all of you getting excited. So
Yeah, I think that really helps, set the stage for, why we're doing this initiative in the first place. And so I'd love to hear about, your experience participating in the Common Application, any insights that you have to share, about how it has impacted your program.
I commented that, of course, we've seen an increase in diversity in our applicants, and not just in terms of, racial and ethnic diversity too, but also just in terms of where they're coming from, and connecting with new pathways programs as well across the US. The Common Application, there are applicants from so many different states and so many spaces that maybe we haven't personally had students from in the past. So that's been really wonderful.
Oh, go ahead, John. Okay. I would echo similarly. It's we've seen an increase of applications from some really fabulous students. And I think one of the things that's been really exciting has been the development of relationship with pathway programs and with different organizations that are supporting students in their home communities. And so having the opportunity to really partner with them to get to know students and ways that we can best support them and provide more access to our programs. And so having the Common App, I know we is a great barrier breaker. It breaks down a barrier of having to apply to lots of different programs and costs and things like that. And that's something that we are looking at Interlochen, is what are the ways that we can break down more barriers so that students feel, comfortable, inspired, excited about applying, and can really see themselves coming through the process. So that's been a really great thing for us, is just building those relationships.
I think for us, the biggest thing that's been helpful about the Common App, we meaning Sewanee, had already been working with a couple of different pathways programs in our area, in Atlanta and in Nashville specifically. We built those relationships prior to, as I know other programs had done, based on geography or personal relationships developed with those program directors. But this gives us a much more global reach, access to students that may not look at a program that's in the Southeast as a viable option. This allows that. And also it's been helpful. Most of our DEI efforts at Sewanee prior to the Common App had been focused on pre-college students, which is terrific. But now that we can have this resource, we are also able to recruit at the collegiate level, because we have both pre-college and college students here. And so being able to see an increase, and I think this was reflected in the report that was shared at the beginning of the meeting, that we're seeing college age students also utilizing the Common App, which helps us on both, I don't want to say ends, both sides of our program, right? Our younger students and our more mature players. And it gives the younger students that are here mentors, right? It gives them mentors that look like them and have had similar life experiences and musical experiences. So that's been really, really helpful. And I hope that continues, because we definitely want to cultivate the collegiate age students through the Common App, as well as our pre-college students. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, echoing everything that everyone said, especially John, what you just mentioned, it has been really nice to have more collegiate age students apply this year. I mean, way more, and the level has been really high. I think something too, just an additional thing, I really agree with everything that was said, is the conversations that we've been able to have in these meetings has been good for our organization internally. I think it's easy to talk about different ways to improve equity in the organization, but when it's like, okay, they're doing it, the Common App has a deadline, it's happening, we need to find a way to make this work for our organization, has been productive. So that also has just been really nice.
That's wonderful. And I'm wondering if we could talk more specifically about the shared repertoire list. Austin, I think Elizabeth, you also were part of that process. If you could talk about, how it was developed, and then also some insights that you that you had. You know, one thing we hear a lot is about, you know, faculty buy-in and what, you know, are they able to get, you know, an accurate representation of a musician's talent by hearing, you know, a shared audition list that might be different, you know, material from other applicants. So would be curious to kind of hear general thoughts there, and also, you know, setting the stage for how this list was developed in the first place.
I can start off because I did do a lot of work on this year, which was really fun. What a great opportunity. I think that the basic need for the shared audition list came from the idea that, especially for the most competitive instruments where you might have upwards of 100 students competing for 4 spots, it's can be really hard if there's a very wide range in repertoire. And that can negatively impact the student for them not being chosen for the repertoire instead they're playing, or the other way that, you know, you might, whoever is adjudicating the repertoire might feel that they are like taking some kind of a risk, like by not knowing some information. And, you know, that, I mean, just to kind of explain that further, that can also hurt the student if someone gets put in a position where they're not going to be successful at the festival. Like, I mean, I think a great example is like bass clarinet or English horn or something. If you get assigned to a big solo that maybe you wish you weren't assigned to. I've been there. So, but I think that the basic premise we did having 2 lists this year was to provide one list for the more college age focused programs and one list for the more high school age programs, or maybe some excerpts that can straddle the 2, like programs like Sewanee that you were talking about, John. I think that I think we were pretty successful. I mean, I definitely want to look at it again this year, because we added a lot of, in doing this list this year, we also were trying to diversify our excerpts on our own list, and a lot of those excerpts made it onto this list, which has been great. But also there's some, after going through the audition process, I think there are further tweaks that we want to get, just kind of like, that doesn't quite give us the information we need, or we replace this excerpt, but we might want to put a different one in. And also in some situations, there are some instruments that we didn't add new repertoire to that we'd want to add this year. So yeah, I think it's still a work in progress, but I think that this year was successful in general. I mean, they'll probably be work in progress forever. I will say that we don't have the, at NOI, we don't have the big issue that most festivals have, which is we choose our excerpts, our faculty do not. So that's kind of, you know, makes it way easier for me to talk about this, I think, rather than have like a group conversation with 200 people. So, so I'll let Elizabeth take it from there.
Sure, thanks, Austin. I was a part of, you know, Interlochen was a part of the group that was talking about the excerpts and finding ways to be able to streamline the process. Again, trying to kind of make the application process more accessible for students. At Interlochen, we actually don't have required repertoire. We do we require 2 pieces of contrasting style and some scale. So we've tried to really kind of simplify it. But we do have suggested repertoire sometimes for, you know, here's the typical repertoire that a student might be playing if they're in this program. And so just to kind of help with teachers having an idea of what might be a good level, but we have actually had, you know, more of a streamlined, just 2 pieces of contrasting style, whatever really showcases a student best. We want to see them at their best, most confident playing as part of our audition process. And so that's how we do it.
Thanks for that. I want to move into talking about funding, because as I mentioned earlier, you all provided a lot of scholarship to students, but tuition is on average $5,000 per student. And so it can be really challenging to access those programs. And so I am curious about if there's interest in pursuing joint funding opportunities in the future to help eliminate this barrier. And if you'd like to speak more generally about this funding component, which is another reason why we are doing the common application.
Hate to jump in about money, but it's the end of the fiscal year for us here, so I'm immersed in budgets at the moment. Yeah, something that would be really helpful for us actually is each program that we draw students from have different policies around the kind of matching support they provide. And sometimes we don't know that until we're pretty deep into the process with the student and often with the family. So it would be helpful to know from a scholarship budgeting perspective, what each program policy is. And I realize I can go to the sites and pull that information, but sometimes it's not always readily, for obvious reasons, not always readily available. So kind of knowing all the partners that are in the Common App and what their policies are towards students that are admitted would really help us with how we would set aside funding for students, because that's really how we do it. And mostly I do it by prioritizing our need each summer, which doesn't really change. I mean, we always need a certain number of instruments in some areas. We don't necessarily have the same issues in other areas. So anyhow, that would be really helpful.
I agree. I think having insight into partner programs as well, and some of those pathway programs, it's incredible, the support that they also provide to families. So I think that would be wonderful. This is not exactly on joint funding, but in terms of talking about funding, on our application that is not through the Common App, in our financial aid section, we ask a question that is what that family feels that they're able to contribute. And we find that to be actually the most impactful aspect of financial application. We do the acceptances, need blind, and then go through and determine financial aid and support that way. And so that has been a really helpful indicator for us in terms of just acknowledging families with high incomes and high expenses versus low incomes and low expenses, and just trying to support there.
Yeah, I think something I was thinking a lot about this year so our program is basically the tuition's free, but you have to pay for housing and your food while you're here, which can still be expensive because you're basically paying for a college dorm for a month, which is not cheap. You can find it's if you live somewhere locally, you can make it work, sleeping on someone's couch, but that's not ideal. And something that we try to give, we send out exactly like Emily, you said, our acceptances are blind, and then we do our financial aid process. Through, we send out a form. And I think that something I was wishing we had this year was other resources for financial support that we could suggest or offer. Because it's just not I've done a lot of research myself, because of course people are asking me, okay, I need $300 extra to go. We don't have it. Where do you find it? And, often I'm on I'm like, okay, where do you go to school? And I'm on their school website, trying to figure out how they can apply for money. And it's not easy to find because summer festivals are unique. If you go to Northwestern University, there might be a lot of resources for graduate symposiums or things like that, but it doesn't really kind of fit the mold. Summer travel funding doesn't always fit the mold. And I also think that, this is really in the weeds, but I don't think that musicians are as competitive for the summer travel funding as someone that's going to Brussels to present at a science conference, just because it's not quite the right fit. So I would love if there were some And maybe, you know, as you were talking about, this does exist through a lot of the Pathways programs, and I just probably don't know about it and don't know where to point people. But I also just kind of wish there was something for specifically for this that I could be like, oh, you need money, go apply here. You know, so maybe that's just a wish list, but yeah, that's my contribution.
Yeah, I would totally agree that, you know, we finding resources to help kind of point students and families and organizations to would definitely be helpful, and having, you know, more information about kind of what supports are available from each organization, and maybe even starting those conversations earlier in the process could be helpful, so that everyone is kind of on the same page from the very beginning of kind of here's what you know, each organization is able to do to help support students, knowing that it would be, you know, probably dependent on each individual student situation. But I think continuing to open lines of communication and kind of start those conversations earlier would be definitely something that we would be interested in and be very beneficial.
That's great. I love all of these ideas. And so we'll definitely be taking all of these into consideration. So thanks for sharing. I want to move on to the topic of supporting students while they're on campus. Because the theme of belonging, it came up a lot, especially at our convening, because summer study is one of the first times that musicians are away from their home. And so I'm curious for y'all to expand on some of the support or resources that you offer to students while on campus.
So I'm happy to chat a little bit about this. So actually in 2021, it was kind of an initiative that we took on coming out of the pandemic. You know, our students, we deal with middle and high school students mostly, but our youngest student is normally around 9. And we found in 2021 that they were really struggling with, you know, connecting and kind of being back in a summer camp environment. And so we really sat down and kind of acknowledged that, you know, as a staff, we have gone through, you know, mental health first aid courses or, you know, things like that, but we are not, you know, trained professionals in that sense. So we actually went out and we hired a licensed mental health counselor for our students and our staff. And this year we're actually working with a licensed social worker. So it's a service that is available to any student or staff member. It is free for them. We foot the bill for that at the end of the summer. It doesn't run through their insurance or require any parental consent unless they're under 14, which is New York State law for that. But we just really tried to, you know, have a space that this could be a new environment. Again, they're away from home or, you know, just struggling with kind of adapting or maybe handling things that are going on here or maybe are going on at home. And so we just have them come up and talk to me and say that they would like to talk to, you know, our social worker, our mental health counselor, and then we set up that appointment for them.
So similarly, we set up, I guess in 2021, same time frame, a sort of career and life coaching program here with a couple of folks that are certified coaches. It started as more of a thought around coming out of COVID and how we embrace what we do as musicians and performers, and it's turned into more of a program that has aspects of that, but also talking about things like imposter syndrome and performance anxiety and other things. And it's really actually been inspiring how open this generation of young people is in talking about this sort of thing, that someone with a little bit more gray in their beard comes from an era that maybe that wasn't something that we talked about, right? If you hurt your arm, you were just weak and you should just practice more and it'll be okay, right? Or whatever it was, you know, if you're nervous, just practice more. And this isn't specifically, Paula, to students of color or some of our students that are underrepresented, but they are accessing those resources in the same ways that all of our participants are, which has been really interesting in a good way. Specifically in terms of serving the students that are coming through the Common App, some of our faculty who are faculty of color have reached out to me and said, you know, can we organize events just for the students here? Can we get together and have, you know, a barbecue or receptions? Which of course the answer is always yes, and absolutely can do that, so that the students here feel like they have someone that they can access that has, again, had similar experiences and also not just experiences in their life, but have been successful in the careers that they want to do, right? It's not just talking about their life, but they've had, you know, we have several faculty who have been very successful in their professional development, and they want to be able to share that with the students. So we found that to be not something that we did in a formal way. We wanted it kind of emerged organically, which in some ways I think is more appealing to have that happen that way. Thank you.
Yeah, at NOI, this is definitely on our minds. And I love to hear all this. It's nice to know that students are getting support everywhere, and there's nothing worse than being in a situation where you feel not equipped to provide that support. So we're fortunate on one hand because we're at a university, so we do have the resources of the University Counseling Center. But something that we've added to kind of bring it more into the festival is that we partnered with this organization called Sound Mind, led by Alexandria Hoffman, who's a alumni of NOI. She also was in New World Symphony. She's a flute player. But she comes and does a number of workshops this year, and last year she did a number of workshops on topics of like holding space, identity and motivation, auditions, of course, that's always a favorite, and longevity in the industry. And I think those are tend to, as you know, we've been doing it for, I guess, 3 years, because we did them online once, but now they're on person. But I think that those generally, from my feedback that I get, is find the people who really need them. And I think specifically related to students of color, John, as you mentioned, there is like sort of a representation aspect to it. You know, our 40, I think something like 45% of our faculty are faculty of color, and they do have conversations with our students of color that make them feel more welcome, or help them address something that they might not be able to address with a white faculty member. And we've also had some of these kind of natural affinity groups or conversations arise. Joseph Connors has been a great person who's led some of that work. And yeah, so I think in the mix of all those things, there's definitely more to do. And something I really struggle with is, in our surveys, we always ask people, we're like, you know, what was the best thing about NOI? And they're like, it was so intense. What was the worst thing about NOI? Oh, it was so intense. You know, and it's like, it's really hard to balance that. I have a feeling it's a very fine line. And so that's, yeah, I think we could do more, but Sound Mind has been great.
Awesome. It's so great to hear all the supports available for students, and we at Interlochen also, we have access to licensed, you know, counselors if needed for students available on our campus. And we spend a lot of time as a campus community and a staff doing training as well, and in working to how can we best support students when they are here. We have a fantastic diversity, equity, and inclusion team that has been in place for a number of years that does specific training to make sure that we're equipped to be able to best support students and make sure that students are well cared for. And the community on campus here is one of the things that we hear from a lot is, you know, students find their community, they find, you know, their like-minded peers and support. And so it's, you know, we too are constantly working to be better and do better and find ways to grow, but we do make sure that students are supported while that they're on campus.
I echo all of that. That is wonderful to hear, you know, what y'all are doing on campus, you know, to make sure that these students, you know, are essentially supported and are able to have a great time while they're there. I want to close this conversation by broadening it to see if there are any equity gaps or opportunities that you would like to address collectively as we continue to move on through this initiative.
I'm sorry to jump in. I have to, I'm so sure we all have to run to other things. I have a donor lunch starting in 7 minutes. So I can get more scholarship money for our students. The one thing that would be really helpful, I think, for us is because we have, so when a student is accepted to Sewanee, they have 14 days to make a deposit or somehow confirm they're coming. Sometimes we use a plane ticket as verification, or, you know, so if they can't make a deposit, but we get something else. I don't think everyone reads their acceptance letter as carefully as they could. And we have lost students because they have lots of questions or their family has lots of questions and there's a lot of back and forth. And then, you know, we're 2.5 or 3 months into when they've been accepted and they're still asking us questions. And I appreciate that. I don't mind the questions, but at some point I have to pay, as we all do, I have to pay a big bill to conference services for housing. And I can't continue to, but it's hard to have that much. So I'm wondering how we can better enforce is the wrong word, but we can better underline that while we can extend the deposit deadline a little bit, sometimes that at some point we do need people to decide, and it's okay if they don't come to us, as long as they go somewhere. But it's hard when we're having those discussions, and it's as all of us have small teams. I mean, it's me and 3 people during the year that are trying to do all of these things. And so the more that we could help the applicants really know that, you know, once they get their letter, they really do have about 14 days to let us know and do some kind of deposit, whether it's a financial deposit or another way that we can work with families. I understand that, you know, $500 is a massive barrier for a lot of folks, but that would be really helpful for us. And as far as gaps, I can't think of any at the moment, but I'm sure they exist, and I'd be happy to join others on this call to help fill them as best we can, our little corner of summer music world. Thanks for this, and thank you, Paula and McGee and everybody else. That this is really awesome, Stanford, and just really congratulations on this tremendous program. Thank you.
Thank you.
So actually in a previous Equity Arc session, I was chatting with Nikki a little bit about some of those goals that came from the Equity Arc convening. And I remember talking about kind of like a manual of best practices. And I, at that point, really expressed a lot of interest in that as a partner program. You know, as John was saying, we have a year-round team, but all of our faculty and our counseling staff, they are all seasonal, right? And so they come in and we do a lot of training and with them to try to, you know, catch them up to speed on all of the training we've done throughout the year. But I think having a manual or something that we could share with them would be a really valuable resource.
With an eye on the time, I'm going to thank you all for participating in this panel conversation. This insight that you had is just so helpful. And if there are any questions that, you know, you have after the fact, you're welcome to shoot me an email and we can process things accordingly. But our next time together will be July 11th for our quarterly member meeting. And that's where we'll share the strategic plan for fiscal year 24. And we'll also have additional opportunities to connect with each other. And if you're on this call and are not yet an Equity Arc member, feel free to reach out to me at paula@equityarc.org. And so that's all for today. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your week.